is like customary practice. Most of them live by fishing. So imagine if we don't have good governance within the sub-region, it will definitely affect the population at large. And fishing also contribute to GDP, the gross economic and the gross domestic product of the country. And then it also a source of dietary protein. So fishing is a major sector in most of these countries. And funny enough, let me let you know, these member states, they have ministries. We are the only one that is at an authority level. So the people that we're expecting, they are cabinet minister. For example, cabinet ministers. For example, Ghana have the Ministry of Fisheries and Aquaculture Development. Nigeria has the Ministry of Marine and Blue Economy. Um, um, Cote d'Ivoire has the Ministry of Fisheries and Animal Resources, and I can't remember the name for the Benin Republic and Togo, but they are ministers that are coming with their delegation, and including other international bodies. As I'm talking to you, we already have 80 persons, 80 international guests that will be trooping in for this conference, apart from the ministers and their respective delegations. So we're looking at over 100 persons to come and honor these auspicious events.
So, I mean, that sounds really fantastic. But how was Liberia selected for this kind of a conference?
Okay, so Liberia is a member state of the Fisheries Commission for the West Central Gulf of Guinea, which is a regional fisheries management body. I have to establish it with the purpose of developing policies and programs on good fisheries governance for the sector. Um, since I assumed this position as the Director General over almost about 7 years, I have noticed that it's been rotating to other countries. For standard practice, it should rotate to all its members countries. So I remember the last time we went to Ghana. Ghana is the recent is the chair. Ghana is the outgoing chair. And while the ministers were in their waiting room for the main conference, I registered my concern. I was like, but I see that this chairmanship is being rotating to other countries, and I don't know why it hasn't come to Liberia. Initially, I learned that Liberia had what it was under the Ministry of Agriculture at the time. So, after I registered my concerns, it was discussed among the regional ministers that were there. But the major concern was Liberia's preparedness or
Mhm.
Liberia's readiness.
I was coming to that.
Yes, how it was Liberia prepared to take up, because it does come with huge responsibilities. You cannot just take up the chairmanship because it is your right, but your country must be prepared to take up the chairmanship. And also precedence by the gains that we've had in the sector. So those were reasons that there were some consideration for Liberia to take this to take the chairmanship position right now. And I think it's an honor for my country to do so, especially that we will be having a Monroeville Declaration as a legacy to the country. So when the declaration will focus on certain policy issues that will be a mandate within the sub-region. And so when you're implementing those policies, you will reference that consistent with the Liberia Declaration, we should do this and we should do that. And so I think it's an honor for my country or for Liberia to lead this. And so we had to convince them. We had both financial obligations and we had other obligations, and we had to show that Liberia is ready to assume this role. And the team, I mean the cabinet ministers or the regional fisheries body for our sub-region, the Central Gulf of Guinea, they were convinced, and so they agreed through a joint through or resolution, or it was a decision, that Liberia should now assume this role.
So let me step aside to say to you there listening and wanting to participate, kindly jot down your questions because we like this to be a little bit more organized. But we also want to caution that we we will concentrate on what we're discussing. We will not leave the subject matter. So listen carefully and tailor your questions in line with what we're discussing today. Um, Madam Glasgow, you've been participating in this meeting before. What do we expect as part of the proceedings at this conference? What are some of the things that are going to be discussed, and how is Liberia going to benefit?
So the conference basic is the regional fisheries body, which is the FCWC, is a policy driven organization. So we will be discussing different issues of Guinea, and illegal fishing, how it threatens the food security issues, what are concrete steps that will be taken to I mean cause certain deterrence and prevent these threats. So this is what we will be discussing. And so we have JICA, the head of JICA, the Japanese um, 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 Japan Development Aid or something. They're coming there. You have the FAO, you have a lot of different United Nations bodies, including ECOWAS. They will also be here to discuss fisheries issues as it relates to the sub-region. And so there's a technical working session. And then after the technical working session, the recommendations from the technical team will now be put forward to the policymakers for an adoption, which also will include the Liberia Declaration. So the first 2 days will be technical working session. So the fisheries and directorates or departments of all these different and countries and all of these fisheries international organizations, including international fisheries observers, they will all be in full attendance to discuss all of these governance issues. And sometimes when you go to, and then when it goes, all of these issues feeds into the international governance plan for the. So, for example, when this sub-region has agreed that these are the concrete steps that we're taking, if you go to the international FAO, for example, the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, you will also share these positions that, oh, this is what the central government of Guinea, these are best practices. I mean, these are the make sure that even the policies and things that will be developed, it will mirror what the international standing rules and policies or protocols. So that means that internationally it can be saying um, you should have closed season, and then while the sub-region is saying that we should not have closed season, for example, as a best fisheries management approach. So there will be some synergies between that the existing fisheries international instrument consistent with what we will be developing in the sub-region as amended.
Madam Director General, we've heard you a lot heralding the issue of fisheries. Just tell us a little bit to the how critical is fishery to the overall development of Liberia, if you will, because you were talking about gross domestic products and things like that. You want to just tell us a little bit why is fishery important to Liberia, and why are you being seen as a key player, in the region?
Fisheries is very important not only to Liberia, to the world at large. As I mentioned earlier, with regards to food security,
Okay.
with regards to jobs opportunity, with regards to creating livelihoods, fisheries with regards to um, contributing to the economic growth. of these respective economies. Later we'll talk about Egypt, but for example, look at Egypt. Just from fish farming, they generate $3.5 billion. That contributes 25% to its national income. And you still question why fisheries is critical?
Mhm.
You can see that fisheries is critical.
Absolutely.
So when
I'm
you
asking
look,
I'm asking for the audience. for the
yes, I
public.
mean when you look at the value chain and the kind of job it creates along the value chain. For example, if we're talking about post-harvest activities, you have to do with processing, distribution. You have to do with even those that go on the vessel, the labor force on the vessel. You have to do with a lot of different jobs that is created along the value chain. It creates a lot of jobs. In fact, in some other countries, fisheries is the major source of revenue. For example, in Senegal, fisheries contribute 35.7% to its national budget.
Mhm.
So fisheries is a major, like you other countries will say gold is a major revenue source, or Liberia is rubber is a major revenue source. In other countries, in other economies, fisheries plays critical role in the economy. So I mean, I've discussed
Yeah.
I've discussed cognizance to the fact that we have our developing fishery sector. We are still building on the fishery sector. We are building a foundation for that kind of growth. We are not yet on pass with other fishing nations, but we are getting there. And that has to be clear, because I know the next question
Mhm.
one will want to ask is that why the other economies getting
Mhm.
that and why we're not getting that. But just to throw light to that.
Okay. Madam Director, let me just interrupt briefly and ask our colleagues to join us to introduce themselves as well.
Good morning, Val. My name is Kelvin Demi, and thanks for the show. Let me
Welcome.
use this time to say good morning to the NAFA heading Emma Betty Glasgow.
Thank you. Glenn.
I, I,
Thank
I
you,
think
thank
O'Neill
you.
wanted to make a
Yes,
follow-up.
yes, thank you so much, Vaughn. Again, want to say congratulations on the new as chair. I don't know, is it first of its kind for Liberian to play?
No, it's
No?
not first of its kind. I learned that Liberia was chaired sometimes when Minister Zina
Okay.
was the Minister of Agriculture, but this is the first time for fisheries for us to be as chair as an autonomous and authority.
Mhm.
So since NAFA was founded, I mean this is the first time NAFA is taking the chair as an institution with a specialized function for managing fisheries.
All
At that time, it was agriculture,
Mhm.
but right now, it is NAFA itself taking ownership and taking the chair position. So it is not the first time for Liberia. I think this is the second time for Liberia,
Mhm.
but it's the first time for NAFA. And the importance to this is that uh, the country benefits hugely from this in terms of especially the authority in terms of the recognition and confidence that other fishing nations have in what we do to trust us although it's a standard practice that this chairmanship must be rotated
Mhm.
to member states,
Okay.
but it also has to deal with it's also predicated upon your preparedness to assume the chairmanship position. Definitely it will pass you and go to another country. So I think it's a win for Liberia that at this time we are prepared to assume this chairmanship role.
So,
Great.
yeah, go ahead.
In plain sense, what does it take to be prepared?
Okay, for example, I will not go into a lot of details, but for first is the first thing that we discussed was our financial capabilities.
Okay.
There is a shared cost in hosting this auspicious event. In fact, let this be clear in terms of partnership.
Mhm.
there are shared responsibilities. With all of these agreements that you sign, whether it's through grants or it's loan,
Mhm.
there are shared responsibilities. So
Okay.
they will do this and the country will do that. So we have shared responsibility. For example, even having a strong leadership team
Mhm.
to be able to make the adequate representation for the sub-region, it is also something that they will consider. So when they are making this decision, because Liberia is going to be taking the lead on all of these things in terms of negotiation,
Mhm.
advocacy for the sub-region, although all of these things will be in consultation with the regional fisheries management body, but Liberia will be taking the lead in terms of representation for the sub-region. So it's important that Liberia has a leadership team that have the capabilities to
Mhm.
do those to make that representation for the country. And also another thing is that the executive of the government should also agree that we are ready to host it. So NAFA, through my NAFA representing the government, had to write the executive mansion and ask them that we have made the case that Liberia is ready to host this program, but I need the consent, I need the blessing, because it's important that the president and a high level executive will go and receive this receive all of these international guests. I mean, at this very high level in terms of strengthening and with regards to diplomacy.
Mhm.
So let me learn. So the mansion had to agree that okay, after we have made the case in consultation, is a key thing.
Mhm.
Is in consultation with a senior executive that we were able to now communicate to them firmly
Are you
that
prepared?
Liberia is prepared.
Okay.
So,
in other
so
words,
NAFA cannot say they are prepared
Mhm.
when the country or the leadership it is not aware.
so
Okay.
Liberia is prepared.
So Liberia is prepared. So it goes above NAFA and is a Liberia preparedness. So like it was because it's a national event.
A follow-up
Okay.
to that is
Okay.
is the issue that has to do with the financial implication. Now, you said it's going to be a joint, endeavor where the entire team will make some money available, and the host country will also make some funds available. Now, I'm concerned about the percentage. To what extent is NAFA going to
So
support this
NAFA,
initiative?
so the host country will take responsibility. So you don't want to equate it to monetary values right now.
Okay.
But for example, you'll be hosting over 125 persons. You have to pay for the lodging of those people, right?
Mhm.
In terms of logistics, you have to provide it logistics. In terms of providing diplomatic courtesy for the high-level ministers and head of international institutions,
Mhm.
you have to do that. In terms of feeding, everything that pertains, in terms of also giving some visibility and publicity to the program,
as well.
transportation, all of those things are part of it. At the same time,
Mhm.
the regional body will now cover the expensive social obligations.
Mhm.
So there's a pool of resources, and we also have developing partners that are supporting the sub-region, like the Norwegian government, like JICA, and maybe even the European Union. So they are all donors to this regional body. So the regional body will now finance the trips and other things, but then the host country to also should show that they are able to receive these guests, process all of their visas, because for example, some people coming from East Africa, some people coming from the Caribbean, America,
Mhm.
and all of that.
Mhm.
We will have to process the visas upon their arrival, and all of that for the convenience and everything. The government has to take that responsibility, and those activities come with some financial costs.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's the cost
So
for
Kevin,
yeah, what's the cost for this entire program?
I would not want to discuss the costs
Okay.
for the entire program.
So
I just want to let you know that we are hosting over 100 persons, and go and ask. They will be hosted in Mama Point Hotel, and they'll be hosted in Cape Hotel. Go and ask Cape Hotel and Mama Point
so
Hotel
Kevin,
how
Yeah,
much it would
protected
take
by-
to cost a night, and then the vehicles, for those VIPs that are coming, they'll be riding. I mean, good vehicles, you know.
I mean, they are international.
Those
guests,
are especially for the cabinet, the ones at cabinet level in heads of institutions.
Mhm.
They will be riding those vehicles. We have a contract. We did a little contract with Oregon, so Oregon will be providing it. You know, Oregon will not give their cars for free, right? So there are costs associated. Then even you have to do with the catering. They'll be here. They'll be feeding for the next 3 days. So all of those things have associated costs. So I don't want to start going into breaking down
Okay,
costs. and
okay.
things like
Yeah,
that.
so let's move on to the big news. Madam Chair.
So before
yes.
we go to the big news, I don't want us to leave this. Probably we will not come back here. When is the conference convening and what's the duration?
Okay, so the conference is convening December 11th
Okay.
to December 13th.
Okay, 11 to 13. Where will it take place?
So the technical working session will be at Mama Point,
Okay.
and the ministerial meeting itself, it is on the 13th. It will be at the EJS Ministerial Complex.
You talk about the government acquiescing to this conference. Do you expect the president, for an example, to be in attendance?
Yes, because it's about Liberia. I'm confident that the president will come. It's Liberia that is taking the chairmanship.
In order,
It's a win. It's a win for Liberia. It's a win for the president. It's a win for everyone. So yes, I'm very sure that there will be a very high level representation from our government at this meeting.
So, with all of these, I mean, as the Director General, putting all of this together, tell us a little bit about your vision. What are you, where do you want to see NAFA, or where do you want to see fisheries?
No, I would like to focus about my vision as chairperson first.
Okay.
Before we go as fisheries
Okay.
as a whole, since that's the topic on our discussion.
Yes.
My vision for the Fisheries Commission for the West Central Gulf of Guinea in the capacity as chair. First, I want to strengthen our bilateral relationship with all of these member countries as a country. That is an advantage to us.
Mhm.
Secondly, I want to solicit direct investments in our country from the private sectors. So you see, in these countries, they have booming private sectors.
Mhm.
For example, Cote d'Ivoire. In terms of port infrastructure, do you know Cote d'Ivoire has a fishing port that extends into the sea, that they've dried part of the sea to extend, and they're doing gigantic processing and all of that at Cote d'Ivoire. Even Ghana is doing a lot of processing of fish processing, canneries, export. They want some of the lead in terms of exports. They have also fish farming in Nigeria with catfish. Have you gone to Nigeria?
Mhm.
If you go to Nigeria in the market, right in the aquarium, the live fish will be there, and you'll be able to pick and say, oh, you want this fish. So they have a booming fish farming industry at in those in Nigeria. So we have a lot of untapped potentials, and I think this is a win for Liberia because I can be able, as a chair representing my country, I can be able to make a business case to attract it, because this is a problem in the fishery sector now. It is predominantly supported by donors. We have not transitioned to commercialization, and which is a sticky issue. So my vision is that this sector is driven by the private sector, then the increased level of donor participation. I want to have a reverse where the private sector will drive the sector even more than the development partner. Although we respect the development partners' initial investment, but you know that in most of the booming economies, they are booming because of strong private sector participation. So that is my vision, to use this as an opportunity to be able to tap in the business communities of all of those different countries. Also, for the sub-regional body as itself, I have an ambitious plan.
Mhm.
My ambitious plan is to expand its membership. Now we say we're 6,
Mhm.
but we have other regional fisheries management bodies that have 20 membership, 30 membership. You know, there is strength in the numbers.
Mhm.
So I want to because it came to my mind that why is Sierra Leone not part of us? And Sierra Leone is just added back to. Why is Guinea Conakry? But Guinea Conakry is with another regional body. So I want to see how we can expand its membership. That's number one. That's part of my goals. My other goal is to have a standardized licensing fee structure. So all the discrepancy, for example, Liberia will be charging $110 US for ton. This is a fact.
Mhm.
For ton of tuna fish.
Mhm.
Maybe Ghana is charging $75 per ton or $150 per ton. We need to standardize since we are going this as a block. We must standardize our fish licensing fee structure so it does not be a disadvantage to another country. Another thing in negotiating sustainable fisheries partnership agreements, for example, with the EU, we see that the EU has a different SSPA agreement with maybe Ghana, and then they have a different agreement with maybe Liberia. It's not a fact. I'm just suggesting,
Mhm.
but we should have the standard protocol on if you are discussing with Liberia, you must be discussing with Nigeria, and it has to be on the same basis, a plain level field where you have that discussion where there's not the disparity based on the different country or something like that. So these are some of the very ambitious plans, and we'll be having a closed season. The closed season will be affecting all of these 6 countries.
And what is the close season?
That means from July to August, there will be no fishing activity in any of these countries.
And why?
It will be a time for the fish to recruit. Sorry, that's the scientific name.
Okay.
So recruit means that reproduce or grow or span or whatever or something like that. Because you can be fishing 12 months in the year and 24/7 around the clock. So it's a best fisheries management practice and is employed in other countries in other regional fisheries management
Now
region.
you just brought me to something following your deliberation. What's the latest report on the stock uh, assessment on the Moroccan research vessel? What are we on this matter? Because you're talking about selling at certain rate. We got to know our fishery assessment.
Mm.
We got to know how much fish we got, and not just hoping because we don't have it. It have not been done for a couple of years. So where we are on this report.
Well, we have exciting news for Liberia with regards to our stock assessment,
Mhm.
and I am very proud to announce that Liberia Fisheries Resources in its pristine condition. The results coming from the Moroccan vessel that conducted the stock assessment earlier during the course of this year, Liberia has about 354,000 tons of fish
Okay.
in these waters.
Okay.
And the last time I remember in my TCs that I referenced, the stocks like our from an acoustic survey conducted in 1982, Liberia had about 180,000 metric tons. I remember there was a guy. Let me just say this joke. There was a guy from UK that read my thesis, and just based on the thesis, he read all my thesis. He came to Liberia to see how he can explore opportunities of fishing in our waters. But now this stock assessment is doubling the amount in 1982 and saying that instead of it being 180,000 tons of fish, we have 300.
So that's going to take me back to what you earlier on said before he come up with the question. You talk about this issue of closing the operation in the different countries. We're having 300 plus thousand, tons of fishes in this country. So why are you closing? We've not harvested, even up to 10-20%. So why are you shutting it down?
Because, like I said, these species are transboundary and they are shared resources.
Okay.
Transboundary means that they are highly migratory,
Mhm.
like the tuna and all these things.
Mhm.
You can run across the continental shelves of these different countries bordering the Atlantic Ocean.
Mhm.
You should know there are several countries bordering the Atlantic, a pristine condition. There's a possibility that will affect your own stocks at a later date.
Okay.
Yes.
So,
It will affect your stocks at a later date. For example, looking at the vulnerability of our waters. If all the different Atlantics around these different bordering or countries bordering the Atlantic, for
Mm.
example, Cote d'Ivoire has started a close season, Liberia hasn't started,
Okay.
and Benin Republic has started. For example, okay, Nigeria will be starting.
Mhm.
Ghana has started its close
I thought it's
season.
supposed to be simultaneous.
Yes, initially it was agreed at the meeting, but there were countries that had to develop strategies or create the necessary awareness in their different countries
Mhm.
to show that it's implemented. At that time, it was not a declaration, it was not a resolution.
Mhm.
It was discussed at that level, but right now it's going to be a standing rule that these countries should close their borders. So, like I'm talking about, for example, looking at the vulnerability of our waters,
Mhm.
if all of these um, 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 countries close their waters, we pose a risk for a high level of illegal fishing in our waters because we don't even have the capacity to patrol the 579 kilometers of coastline that we have. So you can imagine our waters will be vulnerable. And there it's going to be supported by a regional patrol. So as they are closing the waters, within that same time, there will be a joint regional patrol. There will be a vessel, a military vessel,
Mhm.
and that will have to work the modalities with the Ministry of Defense of all these other respective countries
I want to
to
ask.
see how they can participate
Uh-huh.
in the joint fisheries patrol that will be across along the Atlantic, across all of these countries.
Yeah, I want to ask in that regard.
Mhm.
You're talking about providing security. Can we get a clear picture of how many fishing vessels currently active on our waters register?
Okay, so fishing vessels fishing within our territorial seas because there's a difference between the territorial seas
Yes.
and the exclusive economic zone.
Mhm.
So the territorial seas extend from 0 nautical mile to 12 nautical mile. For example, 1 nautical mile could be like 4 acres of land. So I'm just saying, I'm just giving you an
Yes.
imagination of what it is.
Mhm.
So from 0 nautical miles to 12 nautical miles is our territorial seas, and an extension to 200 nautical miles, which was done sometime by maritime. We have only 6 vessels fishing in our territorial sea. Then we have the crustaceous zone, which is up to 22 nautical miles. We still have the 6 vessels fish up to that. I mean, the six vessels can fish as far as they want with that extension. But I'm just saying vessels that are registered to operate within our territorial seas. So we only have 6 vessels. Those 6 vessels been operating since 2013, Ellen Johnson period. We have not increased the efforts on our waters because we have not conducted a stock assessment. So this stock assessment was critical
Mhm.
Okay.
to unleashing
Mhm.
the economic potential in the fishery sector.
Okay.
It was very critical. But we have tuna vessels. We have tuna vessels fishing in our EEZ. That's why I said the exclusive economic zone. Above the 12 nautical miles limits, going to 200 nautical miles along our continental shelf. And they are fishing for a seasonal species called tuna.
Okay.
So they are fishing for tuna species. So we have, and that is where we have our major revenue source from those vessels because the 6 vessels that are in our waters, yeah, they contribute, but pretty much less than 2% of the monies that we get from those that are registered to fish for tuna for tuna species.
Okay. So a follow up to that before Kevin will come in. During this whole period of your temporary shutdown, will it affect the ordinary Fanti and crew canoemen across our shores?
Yeah, so normally, even now,
Mhm.
there's not much fishing activities during that period because it's high rains in Liberia, very, very high rains. And so it's become even more risky for them to go. Most of them, and they can call it hang in our Liberians, and they can hang their boat or they can hang their canoe during those periods. So that's really the way they make the most is sometimes during the dry season
Mhm.
and all of that. That is when they can do a lot of fishing. So say fishing has different seasons. They have the peak season and they have the low peak season. That is why a fishery has to be studied. And I'm proud that I read that course. So you got to study the season. So you there, for example, setting for example, during the rainy season, that's when you can fish shrimps.
Okay.
More shrimps can be in the rainy season, and you don't find shrimps in the dry season. So it has its own dynamic scene and on what particular time and what kind of fishing techniques to employ.
Okay.
Well, Madam Glasgow, I'm concerned about a particular event that took place at the early part of this year. I think in March, we were invited to the port to witness an occasion on the arrival of the vessel from from Gambia or Senegal that was to do an assessment in connection with
The Moroccan.
the Moroccan vessel.
Mm.
Okay, and the purpose was to do an assessment. What's the status of that assessment?
But this is what I'm discussing. I said that
But
Liberia
no,
has
my thing was it was I know that there have been
it's been
several assessments.
completed
Okay.
and the reports are out.
Okay.
This is the report I'm telling you
Okay.
that we have about 354,000 tons of fish,
Mhm.
and we have 90 something thousand is pelagic, and 248,000 is demersal. Now, pelagic are fish species that are on the surface of the water
Mhm.
and in the middle shelf of the water. So you have your mackerel, you have your tuna species, and some other different species.
What do we have?
But then
most-
what we have most is the demersal, and it's based on our geographical location or the position of our continental shelf. We are way down. So demersal is bottom dwelling species. So Liberia have rich fisheries reserve in shellfish. That means crustaceans, crabs, lobsters, shrimps, maybe swedes and squids, octopus, sea cucumber.
Meaning we have them more.
Yes, we have more bottom dwelling species than midwater species. But in Mauritania and Senegal is the opposite. They have more the pelagic, the herrings, the mackerel, and everything than us. That's why sometimes in 1970, I wasn't born at that time.
Mhm.
But Liberia was the lead in exporting shrimps from the Monserrato group of companies. We have one of the best shrimps in the world, and that is the red shrimp. It's called scarlet shrimp. I think it's even the most expensive shrimp. I think one ton on international market would be about 100 something $1,000 for 1 ton. And with black market, I think they can sell about 60 something thousand or 70 thousand. I mean, this is not a fact. This is just something I learned. I heard. So we have scarlet shrimps in our waters. That's the deep red. So remember when we were doing the experimental shrimp fishing, and the EU raised concern on the sustainability of that fishing is because that fishing is in some countries is endangered because it's rare. You don't find it so many countries. Is rare. So they were talking about the existence of the species so that we don't so that it can be guided by scientific data. I mean, all of our fishing operation has been key. It has been tied to this stock assessment. We have not increased the number of vessels on our waters because we did not have enough information to inform management decision.
Okay.
So now, after this stock assessment,
Mhm.
we will now develop something called the fisheries management plan. That fisheries management plan is the strategic document that will inform the management on the number of vessels to register and the quota allocation for all these different species. But go with your question and all this.
So, I mean, is it in reference to this whole stock, assessment situation? When was it conducted? Because the follow up to that would be, why is it recent when you've been there for almost five, 5+ years, so to speak? Why is it just happening when you would have done it ever since, so that we can determine how to expand the local sector?
Well, it's because we number one, Liberia doesn't have the money to invest in the sector. Honestly,
Who fund?
like Liberia has not, they don't have not done a direct investment in the sector like other countries would do.
Okay.
So we had to reach out to partners to help us get vessels to come in our waters to conduct the stock assessment, and all of these bilateral relationships and negotiations takes time.
Okay.
In fact, I remember the World Bank, after we had secured the 40 million from the World Bank in 2020.
Mhm.
Part of that money went towards getting a vessel. We list that as a priority to understand the dynamism of and the abundance of the species in Liberian waters, so that we can be able to sell the species. We published that thing for 2 years. We couldn't get vessel. We finally got Senegal. Even for Senegal to come, it took almost 1 year. Senegal, we paid Senegal. At the end of the day, Senegal said their vessel had problem. They had to do bareboat lease with Guinea to come. So it was a long, even at that time, I remember Oliver,
Mhm.
the Chinese were conducting some research with Sierra Leone. I extended a request to the Chinese government to please extend the research to Liberia.
Okay.
And at that time, they said we did not have certain things, and they did not do that. So we had to reach out to our partners. So the last time we did a comprehensive country-specific
Mhm.
survey was in the 80s.
Okay.
So then you should ask why 2013 too they didn't do it. So you can see that it takes a lot of time
Mhm.
to get a vessel here to conduct stock assessment.
So
This is it. This is it.
This is a reminder that you're listening to an exclusive with the Director General of NAFA. It's a joint interview with a team of journalists. You have Wiki Brooks, you have Kevin Denny, you have Oliver Kine, and you have my own friend, the Rabbits. But we also want to talk about the Egypt. I mean the Egypt Liberia MOU.
Yes.
Okay.
Again, thank you so much again. Yeah. The MOU with Egypt. What is the MOU? We can't explain to Liberia. Egypt is a third in terms of farming that produce fish farming in the world, and in the world, number one in Africa. You can tell Liberians about this MOU. What is the MOU signed with the Egyptian government?
Okay, so this is a technical is an MOU for technical cooperation. It focuses on trade facilitation. It focuses on exchange programs that will affect the University of Liberia students. That also for local farmers, we expect that some of our local farmers will go to Egypt to get training, to come and do a TNT. And Egypt will support Liberia in developing our aquaculture sector. So that is what this focus on the most.
You just visited the Cairo quite recently. This is also in connection to Makali's question. What was the MOU all about? You care to detail us the significance of the MOU, the importance, the impact?
Okay, so when I went to Cairo, we signed an MOU for technical cooperation, as the news read.
Mhm.
That is for technical cooperation. We see that there's a lot of gaps in the in this sector in terms of fish farming.
Okay.
There are knowledge gaps, there are infrastructure gaps,
Mhm.
there are data gaps. We don't have enough data on the sector,
Mhm.
and so and we don't have, maybe we don't have the strategies to employ or the strengthened legal regime that is necessary to promote the growth of this sector.
Mhm.
And so it's expedient that we look forward, we go to other countries that are booming. For example, Egypt. Egypt is the lead in Africa
Okay.
in terms of producing farm fish, and Egypt is the third in the world in terms of producing farm fish.
Imagine SLA.
They produce 1.6 million tons of fish, and they generate 3.5 million United States dollars, 3.5 billion United States dollars. And I just want to say something. So I was joking with His Excellency some Ibrahim that signed with me, and I said, so you just generating 3.6 billion only from fish farming.
Mhm.
Our national budget is just about 800 million. If you help us to just get 1/3 of that money, you know what it will do for our economy. Considering that you are desert land, you have extreme temperatures, either you suffer from drought or you suffer from winter.
Mhm.
What are the strategies you employ to make this kind of huge sources in your country? Whereas we have abundance of waters and we have the best climate condition. We have a constant or steady climate condition almost all year round. Tilapia does not grow when the species is below 14 degrees Celsius. It grows when it's at 16 degrees Celsius
Mhm.
to between 16 to 31 degrees Celsius. That's where it grows. That's the favorable condition for growing. But their strategies are designed that at a particular time there will be farming for tilapia. At a particular time there will be farming for this species. At a particular time there will be farming for that species. So we want to. It's a good idea, right, for us to tap into the wealth of experience.
Yeah.
And see also how we can attract some of the business and tycoons in the sector to come in our sector, because our fishing sector,
Mhm.
aquaculture sector, is predominantly subsistence fish farming, and that's why you cannot see the impact, because people go behind their house and they do fish farming. But come to think about it, the technical details, you must know the water quality,
Mhm.
the soil texture, and it kind of speaks to the kind of species that will grow in a particular environment. So there are techniques, even in terms of feed production. Feed production, okay. Um, our women, that activity is normally dominated by women.
Mhm.
Most women, in fact, that's another job for them. They do the feeds for the ponds.
Mhm.
But we don't have the techniques. So when we do our own feeds, we put it in the pond, it drop way on the ground. You know the fish will eat from the surface of the water. Fish will not go and eat in the mud. So we are still even importing feeds. I mean, it was funny to them, but I told them most of our people we import feeds.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so let's look at like our own commitment to each. I mean, signing up the MOU is something good, but looking at our country own commitment, you can't talk about it.
Yeah, and just to add up, and then start your limitation and the duration for the MOU. Like,
Okay, so yes. So what is Liberia's commitment? First, we build a case for our country and say, wait, this is a matter of urgency. This is a matter of urgency.
Mhm.
Let's treat this MOU. Let us not be treated like other MOUs for the film or diplomacy or whatever. No, let this MOU be more pragmatic. So then we discussed right there and then that, okay, I said, but when are you sending your team? Because it has to be time bound.
Mhm.
We want to know how fast, because this program will start implementing this program. So we discussed with them and they said, oh, when do you want our team to come? I said, like yesterday.
The
They said,
assessment team.
yeah, the assessment team. I said, like yesterday. They said, okay, then we'll get a team in January because we're observing the festive season. But then Liberia commitment is that we will accommodate them when they come.
Mhm.
So the accommodation, the logistics, everything, we will take care of that. I
Okay.
give that commitment.
Mhm.
Another commitment is that I said, I want to bring some of your business tycoons in our country, and we are ready to go into public-private partnership with you.
Okay.
So what is Liberia's commitment in this public-private partnership? We are going to provide the land because that's a major issue. Some of the issues why we can attract investment is because our people in the land issue. So maybe I will talk to my government. The government could use the eminent domains, right, and something like that, and give them some of these rivers and these. Can you imagine that Egypt only get one river and we get several rivers? They only have the river now, and that is the river they are using to do their fish farming. We got several rivers and we're not even using our rivers. So I'm saying that okay, I'll go back to the government. I mean, speaking with authority, I said we will provide the land because I know definitely my country will want to have this kind of investment. So I made a commitment. I said, okay, Liberia will provide the land, and then Liberia will go a step further and provide the necessary incentives to encourage your investment. Then those were some of the commitments I made with them, and I think those commitments are attainable. Because even I remember there were a couple of executive orders for exemptions on agricultural products. And fish farming is part of the agriculture. You know, we are a subsector of agriculture. And so there is already some exemptions on imports for all agricultural equipments and inputs. So that was some of the commitment. Another commitment is that in terms of technical cooperation, I'm proud to say that Liberia has one of the best MCS team in the sub-region. We have a sophisticated monitoring, control, and surveillance fisheries monitoring center. A fisheries monitoring center, and we monitor vessels 24/7 across the whole world. We have developed that. I mean, we have a program, a satellite monitoring software that was given to us by Maritime. We formed some mergers with Maritime and CLS, and we monitor vessels all across the world. And our inspectors or our FMC staff are trained to read the tracks of the vessels and determine its activity. So our FMC staff can tell you whether the vessel is in distress, whether the vessel is transshipping with another vessel, whether the vessel is anchored, or whether the vessel is just on innocent passage.
Is it that sophisticated?
That is that sophisticated. Yes, I will also have an inspection program. Our inspectors fly to other African basins to conduct fisheries inspection anytime the vessels are called to port. So we can use that as an advantage for them to learn from us. So we're not only going there to gain from them, it is a partnership. They will also gain from our strength in our MCS programs.
I mean, okay,
Yes, yeah, go ahead.
That's what my concern was, because there has been time where we brought all these investors to the country, and Liberia ended up becoming the victim.
Why?
We can reference the APN terminal deal and different concessions that were signed where the country got peanuts when these investors took away all of the.
But you can wait for the investment to come.
No, so I mean, my question to you is:
from experience.
are you putting into place mechanism when these Egyptian
In terms of sourcing investment, let's make this emphatically clear.
Okay.
It's a little bit above me.
Okay.
I can only encourage the investment and work on the technical details with the specifics relating to fishery sector.
Okay.
The complexity of these agreements are not in my purview exclusively. So let us make that clear. So don't put me on the stand to say, how am I going to protect the investment? The investment will be for the Republic of Liberia.
You could provide
And we
guidance.
have a legislation that will legislate these concessions if the value is over 10 million.
Okay.
And I'm confident in the wisdom of our legislation.
You are the technical
So
person. You will need to
I will
provide.
make a case and I will make some technical recommendations,
That's
and
correct.
that is where I stop.
Yeah,
But the decision for it to be for a concession is at the level of the senior executive, and it's within the purview of the legislation. And
Yes.
I will not want to discuss.
But as you see the same guys, then we know it can guide
Yeah,
us.
Madam Chair, let's move
I
on.
will only provide a
Yeah.
technical recommendation
Exactly.
because my institution.
And I asked you earlier on for
it's
the-
technical
the-
in nature, so
the-
please don't.
The
Okay.
creation.
Yeah, because you know which of the species got a lot of money, so you could guide them and say, look, don't give these people this percentage, and that's where I was coming from.
So we keep this solid
yes.
we want to hear
Yeah.
from you.
Yes, I'm here thinking about the technical benefit. A local farmer listening out to you, how can I get support from this sector?
So this is why we are looking for opportunities to grow the sector. This is why we are aggressively trying to reach out to other countries that have higher performance in the sector, because we have a small technical team and we don't have all of the capacity for the kind of demand. Once we roll out this program, there will be huge demand. Do we have a technical team enough to respond to the demands? That is why it must be private sector driven, where we will have private companies that are just there for the construction of ponds, where we will have them that are there for extension services, to provide extension services,
Okay.
where we will have them only for feedling production. Right now, we with support from the World Bank, we are building a state-of-the-art hatchery where we will produce the feeds, because even the feeds are being imported from Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire. So we will produce the feeds and give feeds to farmers, and where we will also have our women involved in the feed production. So there are different categories of this, and all of these different specialization activities must be driven by private sector in order to meet with the demands from the public. Right now, in all honesty, we have a technical team that do have the capacity to build farms and provide extension services. But when I say when it becomes a national issue and you have like 50 persons at the pool asking you to please come and produce your farm, do we have the technical capacity to match that demands? No, we don't have it yet. So this is why the best approach is to go into public-private partnership, so that the private sector can be the main driver for the growth of this sector. And this is it. Another thing I did not mention is that they will be bringing a team in January. The team that will be coming in January will conduct an assessment.
Okay.
The assessment will entail, they will look at the infrastructure gaps. They will look at the technical specifications as it relates to the soil texture, the water quality, the kind of species that can grow in our environment. They will also look at the business climate to also see, what kind of investment will match our contemporary economic status. They're going to invest no 100 billion when they think that we don't have the purchasing power to support their investment. So that study will comprise of all of that. And then from there, they will develop a national strategy. Now the national strategy will now put it into phases. Phase one, we will be doing training with the bridging the knowledge gap, maybe sending, we'll bring our professors here to tutor at the University of Liberia. We'll take 100 farmers, local farmers, send them to Egypt for 3 months training, so they come and do the training. Maybe stage two will be our regulatory regime. Because let me tell you, in order to secure investment, you must have a strong regulatory regime. It goes hand in hand. Nobody's going to risk their investment if you don't have a strong regulatory regime, because then the investment will be vulnerable. So they will do an assessment on our regulatory regime. Do we have the compliance and enforcement capacity for this kind of investment, stuff like that? Maybe stage two will be focused on strengthening our legal regime for the fish farming sector. Maybe the stage three will be piloting a major program where an investor will come and say, okay, because of the purchasing power, the contemporary economic status, we will only invest 20 million in Liberia. And that 20 million, our targets will be to cut the fish demand deficit. We have not discussed that. Do you know, as a coastal state, we import more than we produce? So we have 24,000 metric tons as a fish deficit on our local market from the last time I checked. Maybe the plan is to bridge the demand, the fish demand deficit on our local market. And that is equivalent to almost 60 to 70 million. So 60 to 70 million leaves our economy. So we could trap that by producing more fish on our market. So that could be the target, that in 5 years of this plan, we should be able to produce maybe 15 tons of fish or 20 tons of fish to bridge the fish demand deficit on our local market. So this MOU is going to be time bound, and they're going to support us in developing a national strategy that will transition our aquaculture sector from it being predominantly subsistence fish farming to a commercially viable fish farming or aquaculture program in Liberia.
Okay, we can come back and do follow-up questions, but we have to move to our next team as we go down this discussion. You all remember the yellow
I have
card?
no break.
While we're talking about the yellow card, can you tell us what is the yellow card in relations to our discussion?
Another major thing that you people did not ask me, and I want to bring this to your attention. I don't blame you because fisheries is a highly technical area, and you are very more aligned with politics. So
Okay.
so I won't blame you,
Awesome.
but we forgot to, after discussing the stock assessment, we forgot to discuss what in terms of monetary value, what will it like. Take this opportunity. Now that we have the stock assessment, I can proudly say that we will improve on our existing contribution, the revenue envelope, which is right now that is about three. Our revenue envelope now as a starting institution. I'm the first director general. We started in 2018. So our revenue envelope is between 3 million to 4 million.
Your current contribution.
Current revenue envelope, the
Okay.
envelope
Of
as
the
a whole
entity.
for the entity. That is
Okay.
it.
Okay.
We have made gains in attracting donor support.
Okay.
But the entity envelope itself, it is only from it's only between 3 to 4 million, and I will discuss with you why it is 3 to 4 million, if you mind.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
we want to know.
And so that monies will be increased by at least 5 times from this stock assessment.
Okay.
So at least our envelope in the next 2 to 3 years can go to 15 or 20 million. I am 100% sure of that,
Okay.
because we will now be from the studies that was conducted after we have developed the fisheries management plan that will inform our management decision on how many vessels to license.
Right.
We will now be licensing more vessels. Right now, we only have 6 vessels on our territorial seas. That vessels can be increased maybe by 50, because there will be different kind of species that will be licensing vessels for. The Koreans are they are interested in deep water crabs.
Okay.
They are interested in we have one of the best crabs in the sub-region too. We have the pink crabs. They are also interested in the shrimps, our high value shrimps. We have deep water shrimps and we have coastal shrimps. So we have 6 major fisheries programs, and we will be getting vessels from those programs, from those licenses that we'll be selling. Apart from that, depending on the kind of investment that you will have, will ask you that they will be mandatory that you will have to construct some fishing facility on land to encourage processing, which will now create more jobs opportunities in our waters. And now that we are building a new port, a new fishing port, we will ensure that our law have mandatory laning. So there will be a mandatory laning for all vessels operating on our high seas. Why I'm saying that, all the tuna vessels are not laning in Liberia. None of them laning in Liberia.
Wow.
So you don't think that we're doing fishing. All of them are laning in other ports. We only sell access agreement. We only sell access. They only come and take our fish and carry it.
That's a room for under declaration.
Yes.
Wow.
They only, yes. So none of them are laning yet. That is why it was very important for the World Bank to support us in sourcing these fundings to bridge the infrastructure gaps, because consistent with international laws, there must be a mandatory laning at a fishing facility. That means they cannot be laning where you have oil and gas, cement,
Okay.
and other cargoes.
Mhm.
It has to be a designated port
Okay.
for landing. So now that we are building a port for landing,
Mhm.
most of these vessels will be landing here
Wow.
Where specifically
Wow.
is that
at the
construction?
Monserrato Pier,
Okay.
and then they will be able to supply our markets with fish. And then our law also provides that 40% of the total catch must be sold in Liberia on Liberia market,
Wow.
and then export fees applies to 60% of the product. So imagine even if we start licensing all of these vessels, I'm sure we will close the gaps in terms of our fish.
Importation.
Yeah, our fish. The deficit on our markets, and we will reduce the imports.
Mhm.
And after supplying our market, we will now start getting export charges on all the products that will be exported, especially those species that are not consumed domestically.
Mhm.
For example, I don't think we eat octopus. I don't think we eat squid.
Mhm.
And there are some unique species that are not common to our market,
Mhm.
but they are high value species on other international markets.
And you have them in your water.
And we have them in our waters.
Okay.
So it will be as an advantage to Liberia. You see, Liberia had an underperforming fishery sector because of the lack of information.
Let me follow
But
up.
this is the information that we were waiting for to unleash the potential in the fishery sector.
So in 10, 12 minutes, we'll start to take our course.
Mhm.
So let's.
Yeah,
Yes.
I was sleeping in Vaon. Is our water still virgin water? Normally, you hear say that some waters, probably they are closer to the port. Is Liberian water or virgin water in terms of fish? Do we have more species still?
Yes, I just told you that Liberia's fisheries resources is in its pristine condition. I told you
Yeah.
what it was in 1982 and what it is now. We've employed a precautionary approach since Ellen's regime. When the Ellen became president, since 2010, since 2010, we've only had 6 vessels, 6 trawlers. Local Guinea got about 400 vessels.
Mhm.
Other countries got hundreds of vessels. But we only got 6 trawlers on our waters. And why we couldn't increase the number of trawlers on our water? Because the argument was that you don't have scientific data
Data.
to inform your management decision. And overfishing is a crime. Under-reporting the number of fish your fishing produce
Mhm.
is also a crime.
Mhm.
It is now an international crime.
Okay.
So as
So this is why
what is-
this was why we could not increase the efforts. And so the 2 sources of revenue has been from tuna,
Mhm.
which is the seasonal species,
Mhm.
and the how they can call it the domestic or the 6 trawlers.
When is the construction of the port supposed to end? The fishing pier.
It's an ongoing process. Right now we are in right now we have published the bid for the evaluation and the design of the port.
Mhm.
And we are confident that before the end of 2026, we will have given a contract for the construction of the port. And so the plan was to build a port in 5 years, but you got to follow all the world bank process and standards and stuff like that. Sometimes just one bid document can go for 6 months to 12 months.
Okay.
Okay. So now let's go back to this yellow card. Kevin, you were on the yellow card.
Yeah, I was on the yellow card. The history about the yellow card, popularly Liberian know yellow card to be, in relations to football. It's strange a conversation now. We are tying it to fishery. What is the yellow card? And then you can tell us
Okay, so
why
in
was that
20
the yellow card?
in 2017, May 23rd to be specific,
Mhm.
Liberia was put on notice with a yellow card. I was not DG. Let me make this emphatically clear that I was not DG when Liberia had the yellow card.
Okay.
So Liberia was warned as a non-cooperative third member state
Mhm.
because at that time the Maritime Authority provided provisional license to a vessel that was blacklisted.
Okay.
That means when a vessel is blacklisted, that means the vessel had committed some international crime.
Mhm.
but the vessel was a fishing vessel. And so that was when Liberia was yellow carded. Now,
okay.
when I became DG of the fisheries,
Mhm.
I remember that I was in school when the yellow card was levied on Liberia.
Okay, so you left school, you came back to NAFA.
And no, I want to bring something to your attention. And I remember my professor said, now that you have a yellow card, because I've been reading ocean governance and it was a topic of discussion.
Mhm.
I don't know whether it was the act of God. He said, but you have to now go back and lift that yellow card from your country.
Okay.
So why I brought this into discussion, because I took that as a singular priority
Mhm.
when I assumed this role that lifting the yellow card is a must, considering that the agreement, the sustainable partnership agreement with Liberia had expired in 2023,
Mhm.
removing 33 ships from our domestic registry. And that has been a precondition for renegotiating that agreement with EU for the vessels to come here to lift the yellow card.
Okay.
And so we have taken a lot of proactive steps and made a lot of effort, immense effort. My team and I have made immense effort towards lifting the yellow card.
Mhm.
Now they had 4 thematic areas: strengthening our legal regime, our monitoring, control, and surveillance program,
Mhm.
the licensings and authorizations, as well as fisheries management. Those were the key areas they were looking at
Mhm.
in terms of lifting the yellow card.
Okay.
Now, in terms of strengthening our legal regime, Liberia has made significant efforts towards that. We developed implementing laws in managing the fisheries sector,
Mhm.
because fisheries was just established by an act. There was no management laws on how to do this or how to do that.
Okay.
We passed that law in 2019. That law was passed in 2019. We updated our fisheries regulations. We developed policies. We went as far as ratifying fisheries instruments in an effort to promote good fisheries governance. We were ratified by NAFA, the Port State Measures Agreement, which is a fisheries instrument. We did some accession. The IWC, we acceded to IWC. We acceded to other regional fisheries management bodies.
Mhm.
And we also went as far as ensuring that Liberia has active status with other regional management fisheries organizations. It's very important. You might not know. Internationally, you must have active status as a complying, as a cooperating third party country.
Okay.
So we got active status with ICAT.
Mhm.
And then we also ICAT, which is a regional fisheries body managing the tuna on the Atlantic Ocean.
Mhm.
And then we have cooperating, non-contracting membership with certain RFMOs. So Liberia has active statuses with all its regional partners and international partners as far as fisheries good governance is concerned.
Okay.
But with regards to the implementation of the law, that is why it needs a joint effort between the Liberia Maritime Authority
Okay.
and the National Fisheries Authority in order to lift the yellow card. Now, our new fisheries law now provides that we are responsible to monitor vessels flying the flag of Liberia that are engaged in fishing operations. That means it goes beyond vessels operating within our territorial waters.
Mhm.
Distant water fleets that are flying by the Maritime Authority. Now, the Maritime Authority is charged with the responsibility to flag vessels.
Okay.
Most of the vessels, they are not fishing vessels, they are cargo vessels.
Mhm.
But at any time, at any intervention, or any time where they will carry fish products, where they will shipment from vessel to vessel
Mhm.
offshore, they must have an authorization from NAFA.
Okay.
They must make a declaration on the products,
Mhm.
the history of the products, and all of those technical details. And so lately the issue has been our ability to prosecute vessels that are involved in fisheries violations and infractions.
Mhm.
That has been some of the concerns. So it's not about the strengthening the legal regime, it's also about the implementation of our laws.
So why are you not prosecuting violators when you should be doing it?
Okay, so we, in an effort to cooperate with the Maritime Authority
Mhm.
with a one Liberia position,
Mhm.
we developed MOUs between fisheries and maritime, and also consistent with that, develop standard operating procedures
Mhm.
so we cannot overlap functions, and also because of the sensitivity of our maritime program, which is a prestigious program and a legacy for the country of Liberia.
Uh,
So we were very cognizant of the fragility of the program.
Mhm.
And so in terms of doing anything that relates to persecution or fines, the MOU guides us in cooperation with maritime. So
Okay.
even memos to those vessels, like
Mhm.
in case we monitor the vessel and if when we see that the vessels are involved in any suspicious activity, the memos will be approved by maritime. We don't write them directly.
Okay.
The memos will be approved by maritime,
Mhm.
and maritime will say, yes, we gave you no objection. You can ask them what they are doing there. So because it's been very sensitive, we must cooperate with maritime in ensuring that the distant water fleets, which has been the main issue
Mhm.
for this dialogue,
Mhm.
is resolved.
Oh.
Also, with regards to the next thematic area, so we were talking about the enforcement issue,
Mhm.
which has been somewhere where the EU has been, we've been having some dialogues.
Okay.
Then we have the licensing and authorization, which is another thematic area. The EU requires that Liberia, all the licensed vessels must be published on our website. We have a website and we have an ICT platform that we, with our partners, we invested about 1.3 million, and it is there for public interactions. I could discuss that at another time. But nevertheless, all of our registered vessels are published on our website.
Okay.
But for vessels in the maritime program, the flag vessels, the cargo vessels, the reefer vessels, that information must be furnished by maritime registry to fisheries to publish it. Why am I emphasizing on it that this has to be a joint effort? Even our reports, before we send them out, they are reviewed by maritime to ensure that they make their inputs. And maritime has also supported fisheries in making these gains. The EU also said that maritime should give us the CLS program. Maritime went and gave us the CLS program.
Okay.
They asked for joint monitoring of these vessels. Maritime opened their programs. We're doing joint monitoring.
Mhm.
So the government of Liberia, represented by these two institutions, have been making significant progress towards lifting the yellow card, but it's not instantaneous. It is a sustained dialogue. They have other countries that have yellow card, and they are in the dialogue stage. It doesn't. Once they give you the yellow card, it's not something overnight. Updating your laws are not overnight.
Mhm.
And developing all of these new standards. They will even have a transshipment unit that was established for the joint purpose of monitoring these vessels. Those were things that we needed to go in process, and also review the sensitivity of our program,
Mhm.
and to see how it we also meet with the international and demands, or whatever they require of us. So it's been a little bit complicated, but I think we're making good progress in
So
this.
I want to move to my next scene before we start to take the calls. And there was this LRA litigation. The litigation LRA took you to court.
Okay. With LRA issue, um, so let me make it clear that since 2018, I have been remitting money to government.
Okay.
The
Because that
first
was-
money
that-
I
that
remitted
was-
to
that was your
government in
intention.
2018 was about 1.7 to 1.8 million off a $4 million envelope.
Mhm.
We've been remitting money until the EU pulled 33 vessels out of our registry. Then the board at the time said, okay, but there's no money. We have a deficit of 1 point something million. So we are giving you the mandate to go and expand your revenue base, and because of course you don't have money to remit. And then we had some a consensus with the legislature, which was also passed into law,
Mhm.
because that they being cognizant of NAFTA constraints at the time.
Mhm.
We also sent in the EU notice and everything, and the vessels pulling out. The budget was passed and NAFTA was not captured for that fiscal year. But I gave money to the government up to last year,
Okay.
up to 2023, the election year. We
Mm.
paid government money. But you should understand that the fisheries sector is a business arm of the government, and business has its highs and its lows.
Okay.
So there have been some steady decline on the number of vessels that have expressed interest to register into our registry.
Why?
Because of several reasons. First, we discussed the SFPA agreement that had expired. The next one, we brought a flag vessel to Liberia, and the flag vessel pulled out of our registry because of double taxation. LRA had charged the people 2 million, while at the end of the day, fishing, we were also charging them some license fees and other stuff. Although some of the other issues were that our export fees were high, but it was consistent with our laws, and I needed to work in the confines of our laws,
But that's why the
and I
issue of
needed to have a board resolution. And the board and we had discussion and said, okay, since they're complaining that of LRA, let's reduce the export fees by 50%, and they
Mhm.
started paying 5% on the exports fees, but they still complain that it was our rates of double taxation regime,
Mhm.
and they deflect. They left our registry and they're not fishing, so that was a gap. We went ahead again to start our shrimp fishing operation.
Mhm.
I'm just telling you why we had some revenue for
Okay.
shortfalls.
Okay.
So the major revenue source is tuna fisheries.
Mhm.
So from 77 vessels, 33 left, 2 left, and then it came down to 31 in 2003, and it came down to 28
Mm.
in
2024.
2022. And 2024 even went further down to about 16 or 20.
Wow.
So this is where we had the shocks. So some of the issue they also register was that when we call a meeting with the vessel agents and say, but why are we not having all of these vessels coming? Okay, we know that the EU Act 33 has left. We understand the issue of double taxation. But what happened to these other vessels? Then some of the concerns were there's a boat called the Sea Shepherd that is patrolling our waters. And their concern was when they go to Sea Shepherd, how or when it's on our waters, how Sea Shepherd man their vessel and all of that. So there have not been a lot of interest. You see, we have the statistics. We have a monitoring center. When the vessels are coming, they will send us notice that we're coming to your waters.
Mhm.
And most of these vessels are foreign vessels. But we've not seen a lot of interest into our waters. And we're still having dialogue with the vessels agents to see and with Coast Guard and other people to see how we can resolve these issues that have led to the decline in people expressing interest to come into our waters. And they are fishing in our exclusive economic zone. I'm making all of those points to let you know that it is far beyond our reach. All we can do is to create programs and develop strategies that will create a conducive environment for them to come into our program. So because they dropped in the number of vessels, that was some of the reasons. Also, because of the high non-compliance rate in the artisanal license fees, because of the election year, there was some non-compliance.
Mhm.
When there was a change of regime, they also took advantage of it. They said we should reduce the fees and all of that. So the legislature got involved. They suspended the licensing, the compliance activity at that period for a couple of weeks.
Okay.
But at that time, it was the peak season. When they lifted it, the peak season was over, and there was some low compliance. But right now, the locals are now paying, and everything is going to status quo. So with the stock assessment,
Mhm.
it presents enormous prospects to grow our revenue base. So to your question,
Mhm.
I needed to give the dynamics. To your question, LRA and us have been talking behind the scenes.
Okay.
We provided the bank statement.
Mhm.
We showed the presentation on where we had some shortfalls, and and we are developing a payment schedule to offset all of these tips. And NAFA can do that in a twinkle of an eye, especially with the new programs we're coming to develop, the new fisheries program that we're poised to generate more revenue.
Mhm.
This is something that we plan on doing in the first quarter of next year to offset our financial liabilities, even with LRA as well as with NASCO. We were current with NASCO up to 2022.
Okay.
So we just and even up to RRA, we were
right.
current with LRA up to 2022. So because the dynamics in the program,
Mhm.
we absorb some shocks, and all businesses absorb shocks sometimes.
Okay.
But we have prospects of generating the
So,
revenue.
so, madam, this one, me and my friend, you say we like politics already.
So lastly,
You have a team job,
Yeah.
don't you?
Yes.
So, what's the status? I mean, how much do you have left on your team?
I have about a year and 2 months apart from this month.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so the follow up to that before we come up with the other questions will be your chairmanship you're about to assume. What's the duration?
It's about 2 years.
And you got 1 year,
2
2
months.
months, but you're going to be the chairman for the region, for a duration of 2 years.
So the chairmanship is not a personal entitlement.
Okay,
Is the country.
it's for the country.
So you don't say.
So in the
chairmanship,
event,
you say Liberia is the chair of the sub-region. So it's a position for my country.
so in the event where the president would choose not to have you reappointed, it means the next DG is going to be the chairman.
Of course.
Okay.
But I've exhausted the my tenure limits in the law.
Okay.
It's 2 consecutive terms.
Mhm.
And I'm about completing based on the good judgment of the president to complete my second tenure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we you talk about all of the challenges you've been having and your plans to recalibrate. Now to do that, it will require you having a team of committed technicians and staff members. The last time, Kevin, were around, and some of your staff members, if not 90% of them, declare a vote of no confidence in you. There were too many protest actions. What's the status? What's the working environment looking like?
Well, you
at
can
NAFA?
see that whole stuff was unprecedented. Over the last 6 years, we never witnessed any of that. I had no hints.
The last 6 years?
Yes.
What?
I think it was because there was a change of government, and some people felt that they were loyal to we've made a lot of efforts. It was an embarrassing moment for me for my team that I worked closely with over the years, especially most of those that were involved in were those that were praising all of our achievement over the past years, unless
Okay.
they deleted a post. But
Mhm.
I snapshot a lot of their posts, and I was wondering. I mean, just a few months ago, you were saying this and that. How all of a sudden there was just a swift thing and with no notice. In fact, if there was even a prior warning that okay, or there was some interactions or say, madam, we are concerned about this or that, or
Mhm.
even they have written the management before as an evidence with the standard procedure, or had written the previous board before, or even written the legislature before that to bring these concerns. But out of a sudden, we just saw this happening.
Okay.
And so I honestly have made a lot of efforts to reconcile my team. I've had a couple of meetings with them.
Mhm.
And then thanks to the board has been supportive. The board has made a lot of interventions.
Mhm.
And there were some decisions they had issues with. We rescinded those decisions. And we're still actively involved with our staff to ensure that there's a calm
Mhm.
so that we can all continue to sustain the gains that we had made and over the last couple of years.
So lastly on this issue,
Yeah.
in these kind of critical times, you will need the support of the executive mansion. Do you have President Bouaka in your corner?
I would just say for a fact that the government has been very supportive of me.
Okay.
for the fact that I'm making representation on behalf of my country, it has the government's blessings. I don't, as a presidential appointee, I never ever go out of the country without an approval from the executive. I have to inform the senior executive. So even my signing in Egypt, where the president had been in office, had been informed that I was going to sign on behalf of Liberia. And since the government being in power, I've made almost 4 or 5 representation. So it shows that the government is giving me a lot of support. And I trust the judgment of the government.
Have you met His Excellency? If not, have you made effort?
I've met His Excellency several.
Okay.
Okay, so
So-
just before we
so-
go to the pause, finally,
Yeah, Val, maybe,
Do you-
maybe this could be the last question for my end.
you say?
Yeah, Val,
Yeah,
quickly
go
for my
ahead,
end. I mean, is Liberia ready to host this 15th country? How prepared are we?
Oh, we are prepared. We are done with all of what we should be doing, and we already have an advanced team already in the country. They lodged at Mama Point Hotel already. Because it's such an international conference, they cannot leave it only with the host country. They got to be here on ground to ensure that it meets all the different standards that is required for the program. In fact, including and security surveillance, because you bring in cabinet ministers from different countries. They got to do some security surveillance in your country and stuff like that to make sure that everything is okay. So we have them already here, and I think we are ready and we are set to have this program.
Do you have intention to exhaust your tenure?
The greatest honor of my entire life is to serve the people of Liberia.
Okay.
And it's a privilege and it's not a right. And that decision is in the purview of the president of Liberia.
You still have an unaspired
And
tenure of one.
but it's still the government still must work with me to be able to complete my tenure and to continue to sustain the gains of the sector. So as much as I do have a tenure,
Mhm.
but I still look forward to the executive to good judgment.
Worst case scenario, you're given the red card prior to the expiration of your tenure. Will you run to court or will you pack
No,
your bags?
never, ever, 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 never, ever. Government is next to God.
Okay.
I will never challenge the government authority, and I trust the good judgment of the government, and I trust the wisdom of His Excellency.
Okay.
And so, whatever the case is, I I am open to it. Let me let you know that I am an asset to my country, and at any given time, I could be called to serve in whatever capacity. So I will never, ever, ever, ever. It has not crossed my mind one day. And also that over the months, I have some strong network in the government. We're working together. They've given me their support. I don't think I will ever do that. Never.
Okay.
Okay, so good. We will now go to our lines to interact with the public. You can call us on 0880-514-0096, 0880-514-0096, or 0775-046681, 0775-046681. We have a caller. Better still, we will give you an alternative line. The alternative line is 0776 215568. 0776. Let's go to the line and see this caller. Hello, caller. Good morning, caller. Okay, so we're not getting this caller. Okay, so well, let's go to the line and take this caller. Okay, we lost this caller. So let's take this one. Good morning, caller.
Morning, how are you?
Your name and where you calling from?
I'm Wesley calling, and I do something from a brother resident.
Let's hear your question.
Not a question per se, but I just want to applaud Mother Glasgow. She has been doing very, very well when it comes to the fishery sector. I'm what's a mate. Yeah, I am all for the past administration of the person, and she's doing well, and I want her to keep it up.
Okay, thanks a lot for the call. Okay, so yeah, I mean, let's see. There's another caller on this line. Good morning, caller.
Good morning.
Your name and where you calling from?
Yeah, I'm Tawali Hassan, and I call from Goa.
Hassan, let's hear you.
Yeah, the economy is paramount. We need economic recovery, and NAFA is one of the entities that is expected to contribute towards economic greatly. However, I want the boss lady to tell us how many vessels that are contributing to our economy, how much they are bringing to our economy. Two, the local economy is very, very important. The growth of any country depends on the local economy. How much is our local fishermen are bringing to the economy? And if they are facing challenges, what method is he putting in place to support this so they can contribute more to our economy? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I hope you will pick this call. But let's go to this one. Good morning, caller.
Yeah, good morning.
Your name and where you calling from?
Yeah, this is Elijah Momo from the Borough Field.
Momo, let's hear you.
Yeah, okay. I've been listening to the Director General, Madam Emma Glasgow. I to admit, when I turned to EFBC and observed that she was on the air, I decided taking my time listening to her reason level of NAFA. I mean, she have changed that area. You know, I just hope as her tenure will be expired, whether she will be retained or different person will be, replacing her, that another Emma Glasgow will get a NAFA. We admire her so much. She has changed that industry. Before SNSA, we could barely hear about NAFA during those days. So, Madam Glasgow, I want to use that video to say thank you. Whatsoever you are doing for this country, it is God that will bless you and your family. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You will still have time for a few more calls. If you can, the alternative line is 0776 215 568. I have a caller here. Good morning, caller. So we're not getting a speaker. Let's see. Good morning. Good morning. Okay, we lost you there, but you can call on 0776 Lower the volume of your radio, please. Good morning. Your name and where you call from.
Yeah, my name is James Donald. I'm calling from Rehab.
James, let's hear you.
Yeah, I want to say thank you so much to the DG and you guys for hosting us. We really here. She has been doing well and she's still continuing. Now, but I remember some part of 2011 when we hosted, I'm an airport taxi driver,
Okay.
and I was fortunate to be driving one of the top persons from Dubai, and they came to do some fishery study. But then when we went to Marshall, we were asking like he's asking me where can we go to register a vessel and to I want to bring a big vessel in the ground. Like I don't know because whenever he gave me about this thing, but today I can see the airport and somebody asked me, I say yes, I know Napa and we can follow Napa. So I want to thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay. NAFA is more visible now. So let's go to the line. Hello, caller.
Good morning.
Good morning. Your name and where you calling from?
Thank you very much for this Jerry Moneyman from the call for tomorrow.
Jerry, let's hear you.
Thank you for the show. And also, my gospel, she was out of report along with explanation and how to follow well. She was doing extremely well in our system. Well, one of the things this morning is a recommendation. When she started proposing DJ and she saw the idea of DJ, we are saying to me, that she was saying, this one is only with some people to the issue group all by the room, by the river. That will move forward. Because not everyone they have a lot of species. Things that we are going to go out of the room. Not all fish are dancing on their ability to hit. So that creating an avenue where your kids are doing now, is all about how we can do that and you see how it's something.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. There's another caller here. Good morning, caller.
Thank you.
Your name and where you calling from?
Thank you. This is Hussein. My name is Hussein Kel. I'm calling from Jacob.
Listen, let's hear you.
A pleasant good morning to your guest in the studio. I have a concern. I listen to what elected official for the level of work she has done thus far. Every time she will ask, she will say the executive, we can't ask the question, do you have the support of the executive? Instead of saying that, yes, the president supports me, but every time she will make more emphasis on the executive, she has been very specific. Are you now ready to take into consideration your working with the president, or you will want to make more emphasis on the executive every time you say the executive? Because the end of the executive is the president. I don't know what exactly you measure in the name of the president. Do you have to support the president? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's take this one. Apparently we lost this guy. So let's get this one. Hello.
Good morning.
Morning. Your name and where you calling from?
My name is Michael Jones calling from Boncounty.
Marcos, let's hear you. Let's hear you.
I appreciate on the job. And madam, thank you for hard work. My question I just wanted to ask you to know the types of fish that we have in our water.
You want to know the types of fish?
Yes, the types of fish that can be fish in our water and that's in our water.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Let's
Hey, you want to do that?
lower the volume of your radio, please. Yeah, your name and where you calling from? Ama, let's hear you.
Let me just thank you to my MS Blackpool. She's the woman who I've been following for the whole time up to now. And let me applaud her for the hard work and the effort last time. I do appreciate her and I pray that God will give her long life and bring our own review that Mr. President will make it to us to maintain MS Blackpool at the level of NAFA to take NAFA to the best level where she wants to take it to. It's a prayer one thing to really lay out with MS Blackpool because she did what the President followed but not able.
Okay.
And what is very, very great for that money. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So we'll take two more quickly. Let's take this one. Hello, caller.
Hello?
Your name and where you calling from?
This is Lieutenant William.
Nathaniel William, let's hear you.
Yeah. Is this KBC?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Huh?
Yes, go ahead, please. Please lower the volume of your radio.
I'm calling from Maryland.
Okay, let's hear you.
Yeah. I'm grateful for that lady. Seriously.
Mm.
I'm grateful for her and I'm grateful for her. And when I bless the people, I listen to her every single morning.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel the spirit of confidence in her.
Okay.
Yeah. That's what we were. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the call. Final call. Let's take this one. Hello, caller.
Good morning.
Your name and where you calling from?
My name is Appreciate. I call from Dimba Country.
Let's hear you.
So let me say thank you to the city government of Glasgow. She spoke well. And I just want to make some clarification when it comes to our staff. Because majority, if I 90% of our staff, I complain that she's not working in the interest of our employees. So I want to make some clarity on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that's the final one. We're not taking additional calls. Sorry about that. We don't have a lot of time. Madam DG, you've been listening. Most of it were commendations. My colleagues will agree with me. But, for example, there's this one about complaints that the question will ask you concerning your working relationship with your staff and also some of the things you need the type of fish you have. I thought you did that during the show. But yeah, you can take up time now to respond.
Okay. Again, thank you to the people of Liberia, and thank you to all of you here today that has provided the opportunity to discuss issues pertaining to the fishery sector. With regards to the first caller, where he said, how many vessels do we have, and how much do we generate from those vessels, and how many local vessels do we have, and how much do we generate, and what impact does fisheries has on the economy? I think that was his question. If you listened to me earlier, I said that the fisheries' major source of revenue is from tuna fisheries. And the tuna fisheries is managed by a regional body. I said we had 77 vessels, and now we're down to 28 vessels. I discussed issues that has affected their interests in participating in our our fisheries program or in fishing in our waters, and their contribution to NAFA. I mentioned that they contribute about 90% of the total revenue that NAFA generates. I mean, current NAFA current envelope. In terms of the artisanal fisheries, I remember when I became DG, they were making 30,000 from that budget line. Our budget line has increased to 400,000 or to half a million. So that is a huge increase. So our local fishermen, they are very critical. And you also know that we are paying a lot of attention to them in terms of improving their livelihood. So we're not only focused on collecting fees. You see, we provided outboard engines for them with our partnership with Japan. And we also have 4 containers of other subsidies, 4 or 5 containers full of other subsidies. We have this new thing we want to do and give them called transponder. We put it on a vessel. It's a satellite monitoring device to reduce the casualty at sea. So when the canoes go up for the shore and we see that they are in distress, we'll work with Coast Guard because we have a joint operation with Coast Guard to send our patrol boat to save them, especially when they're in distress. So we distributed life jackets the other time, and now we're about to introduce fiberglass boats. That is a project that I signed earlier last year, sometime last year, 2.5 million. We are building boats. We are going to build the first 50 pieces of boats. The smaller size of the boat is 25,000. The medium size about 50 to 80,000, and the bigger size is 250,000 to 500,000. We want Liberians to participate in the fishing sector and take ownership of it. And so we are developing programs to increase Liberians' participation in the sector. And so this is why we are going to this fiberglass board to promote summer industrial fishing, which is
Not the president, you're not calling the president name.
I have a good relationship with the president of the Republic of Liberia, and I have a good relationship with his cabinet ministers. Let's make this clear. The president is the president for the Republic of Liberia, and he is the father of the nation. He is also my father. If I did not have a good relationship with him, I won't still be occupying my role. So when I say I have a good relationship, yes, he's our president. And so I have a relationship. I don't know what kind of relationship other than that, but I know that I have a good working relationship with the president and the executive. Executive constitute the cabinet ministers and all higher level people. And the type of fish in our waters were mentioned.
Yeah.
And with my staff issues, considerably, we have resolved most of our differences. All of those issues have been addressed, and most of our staff, the 90% that had issues with me, we are making a lot of efforts for us to work together. So, I mean, sometimes some problems cannot be solved immediately, and some problem needs time, but it's also the onus is on me to prove my goodwill to the people that our own fisheries sector, invest in it, and make the most of its untapped opportunities or its untapped potential. In the same vein, my technical team will be ready to design business strategies that are cost effective and that is aligned with our contemporary economic status. Thank you, everyone, for your listening attention.
Well, on that note, we'd like to say many thanks.